What do you think is the greatest film franchise? If you go off box office receipts, you'd probably say the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But you would be wrong. If you go by critical acclaim, then you might say something like the Godfather trilogy or the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But you would also be wrong. What about prestige and history then? Well, then you might go with the long-running Mission Impossible franchise, with the first entry in the series dating back to 1996, and the television series it's based on dating back to 1966. Or, of course, you could go with the other massively popular spy franchise, James Bond, with 25 films produced to date, and the first one dating back to 1962. Well, you'd still be wrong. So what is the greatest film franchise then? Well, it is The Fast and the Furious.
Let's go for a little ride. What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.
Almost had me?
Before we get into why Fast and the Furious is the greatest franchise of all time, let's start with a little backstory. So if there's one thing that I know about Hollywood is that if they have a good thing going, they will double down on that. That's why we have 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, 6 Transformers films, and 7 Spider-Man cinematic experiences. But Hollywood banks on more than just sequels. If there's a winning formula on screen, they are not afraid to copy it. Everyone's favourite Disney movie, The Lion King, is just a retelling of Shakespeare's Hamlet. The original 1977 Star Wars film is a retelling of Akira Kurosawa's 1958 feature Hidden Fortress. And mind you, this isn't the only Kurosawa film that gets knocked off. Both Seven Samurai and Yojimbo get remade into the westerns The Magnificent Seven and A Fistful of Dollars. Kurosawa himself isn't impervious to copying other material. His 1985 masterpiece Ran is actually just another retelling of Shakespeare's King Lear. But you get the picture, right? We could be here all day with this. So that brings us to the 1991 absolute action masterclass heist surfing cinema masterpiece by Catherine Bigelow, Point Break.
Adios, amigo! 100% pure adrenaline.
So essentially, Keanu Reeves plays an undercover cop sent to infiltrate the high-octane, thrill-seeking world of surfing, trying to uncover a large criminal conspiracy. Along the way, he builds a friendship with the ringleader of this badass crew of adrenaline junkies, falls in love with a member of this dangerous community, and begins to blur the line between right and wrong in his pursuit for justice. Now, let's take a look at Fast and the Furious. Paul Walker plays an undercover cop sent to infiltrate the high-octane, thrill-seeking world of illegal street racing, trying to uncover a larger criminal conspiracy. Along the way, he builds a friendship with the ringleader of this badass crew of adrenaline junkies, falls in love with a member of this dangerous community, and begins to blur the line between right and wrong in his pursuit for justice.
You know what you're doing?
I owe you a 10-second car.
Is any of this starting to sound familiar? Now, Point Break was one half of the story, but the other half of the story can be traced back to a 1998 Vibe magazine article titled Racerx. The article, written by Ken Lee, focuses on the rise of illegal street racing in New York City and about a group of racers tricking out low-buck Japanese imports like Honda Civics and Acura Integras and tattooing them like skateboards. The article grabbed the attention of director Rob Cohen, who then brought it to Hollywood producer Neil Moritz, who he was actually working with at the time on the Paul Walker film, The Skulls.
I don't know, it was really cool the way this came together. Actually, I was working on The Skulls with the same team, and Neil Moritz approached me and he asked me what I'd like to do next, and I told him I always liked the idea of playing an undercover cop. And he knew that I liked cars. I got a phone call just a few months later from Neil and Universal, and they said, hey, look, this is the idea. It's about modern day drag racing. You play an undercover cop, and against the advisement of my representatives, I signed on without a script in good faith that it would come together well, and I'm glad I did.
So we've got a director, a producer, and one of our lead actors, Paul Walker. But finding Paul Walker's co-star proved to be very fucking difficult, and also brings us to the first point on why Fast and the Furious is the greatest film franchise of all time. So, without further ado, number 1, Mr. Vin Diesel.
Alright, so at this point in the year 2000, they already had Paul Walker locked in for his role, but they still needed the Dominic Toretto. They wanted a mean-looking, tough son of a bitch. Someone that could bring the role of Dominic Toretto to the big screen. I'm talking a ripped, badass motherfucker that could bring it with just one look. So of course, they went with none other than Timothy Olyphant.
I've never met a real Mandalorian.
That's right, Vin Diesel was never the first choice for Dominic Toretto, it was Timothy Olyphant. At this point, Olyphant had just previously starred in the Nicolas Cage blockbuster Gone in 60 Seconds.
Is he okay?
How you doing? Are you all right? Yeah. Are you okay? Just sit back. You all right?
I think so.
Are you sure? Because you just went through a wall.
Now, Gone in 60 Seconds is actually a banging film. You should definitely go check this one out. Like, it's Nicolas Cage before he kind of went on that dive of just saying yes to anything, so definitely check out Gone in 60 Seconds. It's a great movie. Now, surprise, surprise, Timothy Olyphant actually passed on this role as well. And for the life of me, I can't tell you why. If you look at the 3 films that Olyphant starred in 2001, none of them were that good. And he wasn't even credited on the poster on any of those films. So why would Timothy Olyphant turn down one of the lead roles in this movie?
Why did you turn it down? Because it wasn't your thing?
I just thought, well, this will just, again, with me, I just thought, well, this will just be stupid.
Right.
And I thought, no one's going to want to see this movie 8 or 9 different times. Right. I mean, by the 3rd or 4th sequel, people are going to definitely get bored of it.
Right. Oh my God.
So with Timothy Olyphant out of the picture, the producers then went and offered the role to Vin Diesel, who at this point was just coming off 2 of the biggest films in his career, Boiler Room and Pitch Black. Now just remember that title, Pitch Black. We'll definitely come back to that. This is going to be some kind of foreshadowing thing. We'll come back to Pitch Black. Vin Diesel, 2000, space movie, Vin Diesel. We'll come back to it. So Vin Diesel, having never been in a lead role before or in an action film, obviously accepted the role because it's an amazing opportunity for someone at that point in his career. But he actually didn't do that. Vin Diesel actually turned down the role, which just proves my theory that no one actually wants to be in the Fast and the Furious franchise. Everyone's just doing it for the money. So eventually the producers had some back and forth with Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel wanted some script changes. I don't actually know what the script changes that he wanted put into the film or out of the film, but if I had to guess what the script changes are, I'm guessing he probably wanted this scene added into the film. But the important thing is, we eventually had the 2 leads for this role. We had the Vin Diesel, Dominic Toretto, and the Paul Walker, Brian O'Connor role. I should know that, yeah, Brian O'Connor. So in June of 2001, Fast and the Furious was released, and as a big surprise to everyone involved, the film actually made money and did pretty damn well at the box office, racking in a massive $207 million worldwide, off a budget of only $38 million. That's not a bad return on your investment. So naturally, the studio does what all studios do, and they greenlit a sequel straight away with the intention of having Paul Walker and Vin Diesel come back and reprise their roles. But surprise, surprise, Vin Diesel actually turned down a reported offer of $25 million to star in the sequel because he thought, and I quote, "the script sucked compared to the original." Now, if it was me, I absolutely would have just said yes to that film on just the title alone. Too Fast, Too Furious is, out of 9 movies now, it's the best title they've come up with so far of some combination of Fast and Furious. Like at this point, they've got F9. That's getting pretty lazy. Although 9 Fast, 9 Furious doesn't quite sound that good, so. Anyway, June of 2003 rolls around and Too Fast, Too Furious hits our screens with Paul Walker but no Vin Diesel.
Keep your eyes on the road, cowboy.
I get you nervous?
He did the stare and drive on you, didn't he?
He got that from me.
There may be no Vin Diesel in this film, but what we do see is the addition of series regulars Chris Bridges, aka Ludacris, and Tyrese Gibson in these films. Again, the film does pretty well at the box office, this time grossing $236 million worldwide off a budget of $76 million. And again, another sequel is greenlit this time. But unfortunately, neither Paul Walker nor Vin Diesel want to come back to this film. So what does the studio do? They do what any good studio does, and they reboot the shit out of it. So with an all-new cast comes the third film in the series, Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift.
A new style of racing rules the Tokyo underground.
How you guys get away with this?
And all the best drivers want in.
Who's a tourist? Let's see what the kids got. Then let's race.
So with Tokyo Drift, we see the addition of another series regular in Sung Kang. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sung Kang, or as he's known in the film, Han. Now, unfortunately, the film doesn't do that well at the box office, this time only grossing $158 million off a budget of $85 million. And to top it all off, it gets pretty piss poor reviews. Keep in mind, all the films to date have got pretty terrible reviews from the critics, so there's no real difference here. It's more just the icing on the shit cake that is Tokyo Drift. So with no lead actors, a critically panned reboot, terrible box office performance, this is probably where the franchise would have ended if it wasn't for one man, Vin Diesel. For those of you who have seen Tokyo Drift, you might remember one little scene at the very end of the film when Dominic Toretto turns up to race the new Drift King. And we have this little scene here.
Nice ride. I won it from our friend Han a few years ago.
I didn't know he was into American muscle.
He was when he was rolling with me.
Now remember this, it's 2006 and Han died in this film, but Vin Diesel's here claiming that he used to run with Han back in the day. So just remember this, we'll come back to this again, another foreshadowing moment. Okay, so why was Vin Diesel in Tokyo Drift? For a man who thought the script sucked, turned down $25 million, refused to return as the lead actor in 2 sequels, and then all of a sudden does a cameo at the end of Tokyo Drift. That seems kind of weird, right? Well, that's actually because Universal were pretty desperate at that stage to get Vin Diesel back in the franchise. And more importantly, Vin Diesel really wanted to get a sequel to his 2000 sci-fi film Pitch Black produced. So there was a bit of tit for tat. Universal agreed to give the rights to Riddick to Vin Diesel so he can go ahead and produce a sequel if he agreed to cameo in Tokyo Drift, which is how we ended up with the 2004 sequel that nobody wanted, The Chronicles of Riddick, which I don't have to tell you, sucked ass. Now let's take a look at what Chronicles of Riddick took in at the box office. $115 million worldwide. Turns out nobody wants to see Vin Diesel in space. Behind a car, yes, but not in space. If you look at Vin Diesel's other films around the time, they don't do much better. The Pacifier, Find Me Guilty, and Babylon AD all sucked. And apart from The Pacifier, the distributing studios on all these movies all lost money. And in regards to The Pacifier, the one film that managed to somehow turn a profit, no one signs up to do a film like that if their career is going well. This is why we don't see Leonardo DiCaprio in Daddy Daycare 5 or Daniel Day-Lewis signing up to do Cheaper by the Dozen 2. Alright, so Tokyo Drift comes out, doesn't do that well, the soft reboot kind of just goes down in flames, and this is kind of where the franchise just stagnates for a little bit. Well, thanks to Vin Diesel's terrible aforementioned choices in films, he all of a sudden has a change in tune and decides all of a sudden, hey, how about another sequel to Fast and the Furious? Vin Diesel at this point has realized that unless he's behind the wheel of a car, nobody wants to see him on screen. You know, his acting isn't the worst, but it's not exactly the best, but that's fine. Plenty of actors get by with little to no talent. Vin Diesel isn't the most versatile actor, but he does do one thing, and he does it damn well. And that's taking steroids and wearing tank tops. Alright, well that's 2 things, but that doesn't matter. Since then, Vin Diesel has learned his lesson and primarily stuck to the Fast and the Furious franchise. He's signed on to every single sequel Universal has produced since. Occasionally, Vin Diesel does dip his toe into other acting projects just to check if people want to see him doing anything else besides driving a car, but that's a solid no. The Last Witch Hunter in 2015, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk in 2016, and Bloodshot in 2020 all failed to make substantial gains at the box office. although Vin Diesel actually did manage to find some success in a small indie film back in 2014, where he was able to showcase the full range of his talent and skill.
I am Groot!
At the end of the day, Vin Diesel is great in this franchise. For better or for worse, he's kind of stuck to this franchise and the franchise is stuck to him. But it works out well, you know, like he's a good actor for this role, he fits the Dominic Toretto role, he just glares and smolders off screen just like The Rock, which is why he was a great addition to the cast as well, but I'll get back to that later. Could you imagine The Fast and the Furious without Vin Diesel? No, you can't. That's why he's a great actor. And it also brings me to my next point as to why Fast and the Furious is the greatest franchise. If we look back at Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, not the greatest film in the franchise so far, but what it did introduce to the franchise is the director, Justin Lin.